Hello, my name is Blazkin, and welcome to my Ayaka video. In this video, we're going to be talking about Ayaka, her builds, how she plays, and of course, comparing her to Ganyu, the premier cryo DPS in the game. Now, before I continue, if you want to see more content like this, more guides, more comparison videos, definitely subscribe to my channel. And with that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump straight into the comparison. So, before we get into the comparison, let's talk about their builds. Ooh, we have to talk about their builds. They're pretty comparable, I would say. They have pretty similar stats overall. And yeah, it will make for a pretty great test actually. So, Mist Splitter, of course, R1, and 2 Glad 2 Blizzard Strayer. Now, the reason why I'm not using Shimenawa's, wow, that name is rough. Let's call it Inazuma Glad, shall we? Ina Glad for short. Anyways, the reason why I'm not using Ina Glad is because, well, through my testing, Ayaka's damage is really concentrated in her elemental burst. And because of that, that set doesn't do much for her, honestly. So that's why I went with Blizzard, Strayer, and Glad. I also don't have a good set anyways, so yeah. But anyways, with that being said, talents. Oops. So, I was a drooler, and I accidentally activated a lot of her constellations. I realized, and I stopped, but she has this right now. Now, don't worry, the video is all C0, so you don't have to worry about that. But her talents are 9, 7, and 9. Yeah, ignore the 12. Now then, let's look at Ganyu. As I said, pretty comparable. A lot more attack, but Almost's bow gives 50% attack. So yeah, it's pretty much making up for all this extra attack, yeah. 4 Wanderer's Troop. So, we have to talk about our constellations. But let me show talents first. 10, 11, 12. So talents are a little bit higher, right? Around normal. But if you know the game, you should understand that a crown talent doesn't increase your damage by very much, so I wouldn't worry about this. But our constellations are something else. C1 is immediately relevant. This will increase Ganyu's damage by a little bit. Now, to be fair, it's not as much as you might think, so let's give it a pass, but I mean, this is definitely damage increase. There's no going around it. C2, I don't think it's particularly relevant. We're not going to be popping flowers very much because I have C6, so I really want to avoid it. We're actually losing some damage because of C6, which we'll talk about. So C2 is not very relevant. Always relevant, but she really does most of her damage on her charge shot, so let's not worry about her elemental burst and skill, yeah? This is a little bit of a big deal. Oxymoron there, but it's really not quite as bad as you might think. Since she's using Almost's bow, she actually has a ton of percent damage, so this is not quite as strong as you might think, but it's still relevant, still going to give us a little bit of damage increase. And C6, I'm basically not going to be using this. When I do pop out the flower, I try to simulate a normal charge shot. So yeah, it's basically making us lose damage, but let's not worry about that one. But yeah, 4 and 2, definitely going to increase my damage a little bit, but hey, so be it. MiHoYo won't let me turn off constellations. Go bother MiHoYo about that. But yeah, that's their builds. They're quite comparable. And yeah, let's move into the comparison then, the verses. So let's start off by saying that Ayaka is a beast here. Chamber 1 is kind of the best chamber for Ayaka, and it really shows how strong she can be, right? Just watch this, right? Ignore the gun you have, nobody cares about this, just look at, oh, That's nasty. Anyways, Chamber 2 is well, it's a bit more rough. She doesn't deal that much damage outside of her elemental burst, so she's kind of gonna have a little bit of trouble with the hatchlings and of course the big Geo Bishop. So the problem here is that my Mona ult is down, so we actually lose quite a bit of damage, so you'll see that. But anyways, Ayaka does what Ayaka does. She does a lot of damage on her ult. Pretty good. Now then, I want to talk about the Ganyu half, I suppose, because Ganyu starts to catch up here. And the reason why is, of course, because Ganyu's charge shots are just so strong. Now, I do accidentally use a flower on Ganyu C6, so life sucks. But I try to make it so that I imitate the charge shot instead of an insta charge there. But yeah, as you can see, Ganyu basically catches up here, because she's just really, really, really good. Chamber 3. Chamber 3 is a mess for both characters, honestly. I don't really like running them second half, because of the cryo Abyss Mage, obviously. But as you can see for Ayaka, man, her ult just whiffs. And it's almost certainly fine, or it's almost certainly possible to get a good grouping, but I will say that I tried for quite a bit to get that grouping, and yeah, that was about as good as I got. Now, I'm pretty sure you can do better. I'm actually certain that you can do better, but it's rough. It's hard. It's really annoying, especially since this guy's super mobile. But yeah, here's where Ayaka shines, though. Breaking this guy's shield. Oh my god. Look at this thing though. It's actually insane. Actually can't really see it. Okay, there we go. That's a better view. But look at that. It's just gone. That's crazy. But yeah, I mean, Ganyu's good at dealing shields, but Ayaka, man, god, amazing. Really, really, really good. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and finish off with Ganyu here. Now, I will say that Ganyu is kind of in the worst situation here, because we're doing a DPS test. DPS test, we gotta go with Melt Ganyu. So let's take a look at Melt Ganyu instead. So it's gonna be the same Ayaka run, but instead of the Morgana comp, we're gonna be using a Melt Ganyu comp. Now, I know that Ganyu wouldn't use this comp normally of Jean and Kaza, but I wanted to keep as many variables constant as possible, so the only difference here is that I'm using Xiangling instead of Mona. I think it's really clear the difference in damage with that first chamber, like really clear. Now there's a problem I need to address immediately. I'm using a lot of flowers, and the reason why is because you need to. You need to be able to kite monsters with the flowers. You need to be able to aggro them with the flowers, otherwise you'll get hit stunned and you're screwed. So, with that being said, let's talk about, well, why you need to do that. It's because you can't freeze. It's as simple as that. I kind of get wrecked here because I can't freeze, as you can see. So, it's interesting. And, yeah. But as you can see, the damage from Melt Ganyu, oh, it is amazing. It's really good. Really, really, really good. And Melt Ganyu also has Xiangling, which means that we also have an easier time on Chamber 3, because Xiangling helps break the Herald Shield. So yeah, Melt Ganyu does what she does. Morgana is perfectly fine. I mean, she's still crushed Abyss, right? But I think if we're doing a damage comparison, it's a bit more fair to go with Melt Ganyu instead. And, well, you'll see here that Melt Ganyu definitely handily beats Ayaka here. But that's not to say Ayaka's bad. I think she's very comparable, to say the least. She's really, really, really good. And, yeah, I'm pretty happy with Ayaka so far. With that being said, though, as you can see, with Melt Ganyu here, we're gonna break this shield quite a bit faster than we did with Morgana. Especially since we're not running like other shield breakers like Dion and stuff, right? But yeah, as you can see there, I kind of stagger the charge shot, so I mimic a non-C6. Anyways, back to the Ayaka. Great shield break, crazy. Yeah, I think that's about it though. Ayaka's great, very competitive, she did great. Man, what a fantastic showing from Ayaka. But let's go over the pros and cons now. But before that, let's talk about something. You guys are probably wondering, what Abyss cards did I choose? Well, to put it very simply, I chose all defensive cards, so no offensive help at all. Cool, with that out of the way, let's talk about the pros and cons of Ayaka. What I like and dislike. So first things first, her elemental burst is crazy. It is really, really insane. I'm going to be showing off in the background here some gameplay with her and Xingqiu instead of Mona, because Mona's a 5-star, so not everybody has access to her. So Xingqiu instead works fine, perfectly fine. I'm not going to go too in depth with that, but I mean, you can judge for yourselves. Her burst is amazing. Freezing is really helpful, of course, and she's really good at it. She applies a ton of cryo. You're just gonna get purple freezes everywhere with Xingqiu, with Mona. It's fantastic. That's kind of it for what I like about her. Now, that's not a bad thing. Her ult is so incredibly over-tuned, might I say, that it carries her to pretty much Ganyu levels of damage, right? But that's where her ups end. Her normals are not that strong. Yeah, I don't think that anybody's gonna argue with me there. They're not bad. They're not that strong. They're not Ganyu normals, right? They're not Hu Tao normals, right? Well, charge tags, but you get the point. She's not going to be hitting hard on her normals. She really is more of a bursty DPS. Now, of course, I think burst DPSs are quite excellent in the current environment, for Abyss at least. But if we ever get really challenging content, like for example the triple boss challenge thing that we had a while ago, yeah, this becomes a lot harder to use. And Ayaka gets hurt by a lot of mechanics that Ganyu doesn't. We're talking about things like, you know, slowing water, things like, well, I don't know if this will ever come up, but things like the Raiden Shogun skill locking thing, right? Ganyu kind of laughs and says, whatever. Ayaka is crying. So yeah, that's a bit rough. With that being said, overall, in the current Abyss environment, I think she's very competitive with Ganyu. She's excellent, she does great. I think you guys will enjoy her. So if you pulled for her, if you want to pull for her, man, I think it's a great decision. Especially if you don't have a cryo DPS already, it'll be good. Now, you're probably wondering, why didn't I use Melt Ayaka? Melt Ganyu is the higher DPS of the two Ganyu comps I showed. Wouldn't Melt Ayaka be better as well? Well, there is a problem with that. Ayaka simply applies too much cryo currently. There's no pyro support that actually applies that much pyro. Zhangling's the only one, and she doesn't keep up. If you pop an Ayaka burst, I mean, every single hit of Zhangling's ult is going to melt, and then you'll get one melt after that. So you're gonna melt like 4 hits on Ayaka's burst. It's just not worth it compared to Mona. So yeah, pretty rough. And of course, maybe you're thinking, well, why don't you just melt her normals? Well, at that point, you're just playing a worse Ganyu. I think that you have to abuse her ult for her to be, well, comparable to Ganyu. With that being said, Ayaka's great. I think she's actually very competitive with Ganyu in the current environment. Of course, I think that Ganyu is more flexible than Ayaka is, but currently that doesn't matter, so why worry about it now? Yeah, with that being said, let's talk about Ayaka's builds and weapons, and yeah. So, with that being said, we're done with the comparison portion of the video. Let's jump into the guide portion though. Let's talk about her builds, her weapons, and her kit. So, starting off with her kit, I've explained it roughly already, but yeah. She has a dash that infuses her normals with cryo and gives her a cryo damage bonus. Remember that cryo damage bonus applies to everything, not just her normals. Her normals, they're okay, they're fine, but not particularly remarkable. Her E is actually pretty strong. This is quite a big scaling. It's only level 7, so that's a little bit unfortunate. I'd bump that up for sure. I can't right now. As you can see. This is the only thing I need. The rest I can actually get. But yeah, it's pretty strong. Makes her C1 quite powerful as well. So there's that. And then her burst. Man, is her burst amazing. Her burst is really unfair. And that's how you should evaluate DPS in my opinion. Look for what's unfair. And this is what's unfair in her kit. So with that being said, take advantage of it. Now then, as for her weapons, outside of Mistsplitter, I think that there's actually a lot of interesting debate to be had. Mistsplitter is definitely her best in slot. I mean, it's crazy. Max base attack, well, actually it's not max anymore because of a certain claymore, but yeah. For swords, it is the max base attack. For damage, and then all of this elemental damage bonus. It's crazy. Now of course, this is getting a lot of diminishing returns because of how percent damage bonus works in this game, but the volume is so large that it doesn't matter, honestly. This is really good. Now then, as for outside of this weapon, it gets a little bit more interesting. 5-star options. Freedom Sworn is pretty bad, but it's better than all the 4-star options, right? Kind of. Skyward Blade. Huh. This is an interesting weapon. It's okay. It's kind of decent on her because of how strong her burst is. So, you know, energy recharge. Cool. But it's not great. It's fine. It'll get the job done. Aquila. Kind of just a stat stick. Physical damage bonus sucks, but it'll do okay. But yeah, you know, stat stick. It'll do fine. Aquila is Aquila. Now for the 2 weapons I don't have, Summit Shaper and Primordial Jade Cutter. Man, I don't like Summit Shaper, but if you're running Zhongli and you don't care about co-op, then it's probably better than everything else other than Mistsplitter. And then below that is probably Primordial Jade, just because it's got great stats compared to the rest of the 5-star weapons. But yeah, with that being said, 4-star weapons. And here's where it gets harder for me to recommend things, and the reason why is because she's a DPS. Black Sword is great. I don't think there's any arguing that. Black Sword is just gonna do great. End of story. Oof. This is the new craftable weapon from Inazuma. And it's pretty interesting. I think this could be okay. In theory, I haven't tested it. As you can see, it's level 1. I don't have the mats to bring it up. This could be interesting. And of course, the reason why it can be interesting is because, well, it's really helping you get her burst up. And that's what you're trying to take advantage of. Alley Flash. Yeah, this is a Zhongli weapon as well. So, if you have it, you can use it. But yeah, you better have Zhong for this. And for the rest of the craftables, Prototype Rancor sucks. Iron Stink's actually interesting, right? But this is too small, which is why it sucks. Yeah, that's it for 4-star options. Don't run sack. Flute is a stat stick that's pretty mediocre, but if you got it and nothing else, I guess you gotta use it. Favonius, don't use it. Lion's Roar, definitely don't use this. You're never gonna have this passive up. Well, this, in theory, could be okay. So if you have to use a craftable weapon, I'd probably go for this one. Zhongli weapon, flute, stat stick, and black sword, always good. So yeah, that's it for her weapons. Artifacts. So, I've explained why I think the new Inazuma Glad pieces are bad. But it's actually really interesting to talk about the energy recharge set. Severed Fate. This set is interesting. Now, this is more of a theory crafting type thing right now. I don't have a 4-piece set yet for her, but it could be good. It could be good. This increases her elemental burst damage, increases her energy recharge, which, if I'm being honest, she doesn't really need the energy recharge help. But the elemental burst damage is pretty cool. This could be okay. It could be fine. If you're not willing to farm for Glad, which, well, to be fair, Glad is kind of just in a domain now with the new Inazuma set, so I don't think there's any excuse. But this could be an interesting piece of tech. If any of you guys have a 4-piece set and want to test it out, definitely leave it in the comments below and talk about your findings and how it performed for you. But yeah, in theory, this could be good, but my recommendation is going to stay to Blizzard Strayer to Glad. So, I want to end off this video by talking a little bit about Ayaka. There's a couple things I want to mention. Let's talk about her weaknesses a little bit more in depth, as well as her strengths a little bit more in depth, what I like and dislike. But with that being said, let's get right into it. First things first, I actually want to get this out of the way. Now in the video, I went through a couple of more theoretical ideas, talking about, the energy recharge set, as well as the new craftable sword. You should take those with a grain of salt, of course. I will warn you that I haven't tested them, so I don't know if they're actually good. But it's for people who already have that set built or already have that weapon, leveled up. Go ahead and try it out. Go ahead and test it. Definitely share your results in the comments below if you do it. Now though, let me talk about Ayaka's weaknesses first. It's really that she doesn't feel very good when you don't have her elemental burst up. It feels fine, she's not bad, but when I was going through this world farming here, it was definitely apparent to me that, well, if I don't pop her burst, she hits, let's just say she's not very impressive, yeah? Now, to be fair, in actual endgame content, it's not really a problem yet, but it can be. So I've already explained that, with slowing waters could be a problem, with skill locking could be a problem, but of course, even with something like the Oceanid, and I'm not talking about the normal Oceanid that you fight in the overworld, I'm talking about the challenge Oceanid that they've pulled out a couple of times that you can actually hit. Well, that thing moves around and teleports a lot. That's pretty rough. Now, another thing to note is that her burst tends to miss if you don't freeze. So, for example, this is a really interesting one, but I did actually try out Ayaka, and well, her burst just kicked everything out of it. It literally staggered the Geobishops out of her burst. It was terrible. So yeah, that's interesting. Now, I think that this isn't actually that big of a problem, because most things can be frozen, and the things that can't be frozen are either cryo slimes, which, well, it's not really a problem of them not being frozen, and then of course bosses. For bosses, I think it's pretty simple. They're large enough to just not have to worry about freezing them, so it's not a big deal. It is always interesting to say that it has a weakness that could come up, but can't really right now. I guess the cryo Abyss Mage also can't be frozen, so there's that. But yeah, that's also not too relevant, I would say. So yeah, there's definitely some things to figure out, some things that she has problems with, but overall, I mean, she's fantastic. Her weaknesses are one thing, but her strengths are another. Her strengths are quite impressive. They really do propel her to pretty top tier DPS, honestly, especially at C0. It's really impressive at C0 actually. She's really fun, she's really strong. If you don't have a cryo DPS, I'd definitely pick her up, if you can. But yeah, as for whether or not you should pull for her, it's up to you. If you already have your DPS is set up, you don't need another DPS, I don't think you should pull for her. There's no reason to. I don't think she particularly power creeps the game or anything. However, if you're missing out on a DPS, if you're sitting here going like, wow, my units hit like a wet noodle, you should probably pick up Ayaka. She's quite strong. That's my recommendation. You need the DPS pull for her. If you don't. It's always, it depends. Alright, so, with that out of the way, that'll be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much for sticking to the end if you have. Ayaka's a great DPS. If you got her, fantastic. If you're pulling for her, fantastic. Skipping her, fantastic. Right? But I will say that she is definitely a fantastic DPS, very competitive with most of the other options in the game, and she'll do great. If you do want to pull for her, you'll love her, I think. But yeah, definitely do understand that her playstyle definitely centralizes around her burst. But yeah, with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Like if you liked, sub, comment down below if you have any questions. And yeah, I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye.